Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. This afternoon, we have the pleasure of having one of our team members joining us, Savannah Dill. She is one of our Power Platform consultants, and she's going to be continuing our series on Power Up. It's going to be strictly on Power BI. And just as a reminder, we are recording this webinar, and we will post it to our on-demand webinar library for you to review again or share with anyone. And you can find our library under our resources tab on our website at inovia.com. And we do encourage you to ask questions during our presentation. So please feel free to type them into the questions box and we will answer them at the end of our session. Now I'm going to turn it over to Savannah to kick off our presentation.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Power Up series, the Power BI track. If you are not familiar, we are doing the Power Up series. We have recently done an overview. If you're interested, you can go and check that out. And if you are interested in the other components of the Power Platform, we will be diving into those throughout Q1 of this year. This is the first of the series of the deep dive. Starting off today, just to give you an overview that this presentation is intended to be somewhere between a high-level overview and a deep dive of Power BI. It's intended to get your feet wet for you to understand kind of what makes up Power BI and how the journey might look like if you are interested in building reports or if you are simply an end user. All right, before we get started, I would like to introduce myself on a little bit more of a deep level. My name is Savannah Dill. I am a Power Platform consultant here at Inovia. You can see my contact information on this screen. As far as my credentials go, I am 4 times Microsoft certified. I am the Indiana Doug chapter leader, and I have been recognized for a few different awards, including the Newbie Award through Dynamics User Group. I also run a blog called Not a Pickle Blog. You can find it on LinkedIn. And that is a resource that is dedicated to educating about Power BI and Business Central. Alrighty, on the agenda today, we have a few different things. Starting off, we're going to talk a little bit about the Power Platform, the different components of the Power Platform. This will give you an idea of if you would like to, continue education on those, maybe attend the other Power Up series presentations. And then we will get into what Power BI is and break it down into the different pillars of Power BI, as I like to call it. So we will talk about data modeling, visualization, and then connecting to different ERP models. At Inovia, we primarily specialize in Business Central and Nav, so those will be included, as well as Excel, because that is a fairly popular connector. We will also be talking about Power BI Service, and then at the end, there'll be an opportunity for us to all connect with each other. All right, starting off, I like to introduce the different parts of the Power Platform. Today is all about Power BI, but it's kind of nice to know what the other parts are capable of, because once you start one, it kind of snowballs and the door for possibility opens if you use the platform concurrently together. So Power BI is a business analytics tool, and it is great for extracting data. With Power BI, you will be in that read-only mode, so you won't be writing data anywhere, you won't be modifying data. It's all about reading your data, understanding your data, and ultimately making decisions based off of your data. Power BI is great because it kind of breaks the bounds of traditional reporting. You're not, sifting through potentially millions of rows of data looking for an outlier, it's great at picking those out for you. So that's all we're going to be talking about today, right? We also have Power Apps. Power Apps is an application that allows you to create low-code applications. That will be our next Power Up series deep dive. So if you're interested in anything with app building, feel free to attend that as well. The difference between Power BI and Power Apps is Power Apps kind of opens another door of possibilities. It allows you to create, modify, delete, and read records rather than Power BI, you're just reading. This is really great if you use Business Central or Nav because you can actually write data back to a location. You can also think of things like SharePoint in that equation. Power Automate is the next part of the Power Platform, and Power Automate is about low-code automation. So with Power Automate, you are able to automate daily tasks that typically consume time. It's meant to enhance your workday, your business processes, by kind of eliminating those unnecessary tasks. Some tasks might be sending out an email or removing attachments from email and saving them in a location. Or maybe scheduling an approval workflow out of Business Central. Those are all things that Power Automate is capable of. All right, and the last component of the Power Platform that I want to talk about is Power Pages. So Power Pages is the newest component of the Power Platform. It is generally available as of last November. If you are familiar with WordPress, I kind of like to consider Power Pages as a WordPress-esque website development tool. It's great for things such as customer or vendor portals, because the back end of Power Pages is constructed on data. All right, so now we're just going to get into Power BI. The next few slides will cover, understanding what business intelligence is, and we're also going to dive a little bit deeper into the anatomy of Power BI. All right, so starting off with what is Power BI? Power BI is a business intelligence tool, often also referred to as a business analytics tool. Business intelligence is exactly as it sounds. It is intended to give you insight to your business in whichever way you choose. You can connect just about anything to BI, which is a great thing because it allows you to then build and make decisions based off of what it is you have done. With Power BI, there are a few different ways to access your reports. There is Power BI Desktop, there is a SaaS version called Power BI Service, and there is Power BI Mobile. So Power BI Desktop will be the primary place where you build out your reports. It is the place where you do all of your data modeling, your transformations, and construction of the visuals. Once you have created your report, then you will push or publish your report to Power BI Service, where it can be consumed by others in your organizations via different workspaces. And lastly, we have the Power BI Mobile. So Power BI Mobile is, it enables you to download an application on your phone, and then you can take your Power BI reports on the go with you. And then the next few points on the slide we've touched on briefly, but Power BI allows you to connect to, model, and visualize your data. We're going to talk about modeling and visualizing your data a bit later on. But the primary thing to know with connecting to your data is that Power BI has over 150 different connectors currently, and those are provided to you out of the box. if you don't see a connector that you need to extract and read and, you know, create visuals with your data, you can create or implement a custom connector. Typically, those are exposed via APIs. So when I think about Power BI and how it works, I like to consider 4 key steps. And this allows you to go from the transformation process to the visualization process through the sharing process. So the first step in this is collecting and transforming your data from multiple sources. This is referred to as ETL. So ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. This is the process that you take when you begin your journey with Power BI. And it basically allows you to clean your data, add any custom columns, those are the 2 primary things. So cleaning your data and transforming it by adding custom fields. And then the next 3 steps here kind of fold into one. So once you collect and transform your data, then that kind of starts to lift the veil and allow you to uncover trends and inconsistencies with your data. That can be kind of pushed forward using visualizations and conditional formatting that then will allow you to act in real time based on those visuals. Another thing that I like to cover is kind of the journey of Power BI. Whether you are an end user or, you know, a report builder, it's important to understand the journey of what it takes to build a report. Some of this we've already covered, but to repeat is to remember, and to remember is to repeat. So starting off with the journey of what it takes to build a Power BI report. You start with your data sources. With Power BI, you can do on-premise or online data sources. An example of this would be Business Central SaaS versus Nav, hosted on a on-prem server. So whatever it may be, you know, there is a very high chance that we can connect to it. Depending on what your data source is, will kind of forge the path forward with requirements for connection, as some connections are not as straightforward as others. Once you have selected your data sources, you will then pull in the necessary or required tables into the Power Query Editor, and that is where you will do your ETL transformations. If you are a bit more code savvy, you can take a crack at editing the M code. M stands for mashup, and it is the language that Power BI writes things to in the back end. If you don't know code, that is all right. Power BI will write it for you on the back end. The next step will be modeling your data. So with data modeling, you must create relationships between your tables, because that is what gives the dynamic interactivity with within your report. So without relationships, your pages won't be as dynamic, and it opens the door for more interactions between your data for you to end up doing really cool stuff. The last step will be visualizing your data, which is the fun part where you get to drag and drop all of the necessary fields into a visual and kind of populate that on the page as you wish. And then you will publish those either to Power BI Service, where you can share within your organization, or you can export to Excel for further manipulation. Okay, and then the next thing I'd like to talk about is data sources and get data. So using the get data button is the place where you start your reports. When you hit get data, you will select the connector that, best aligns with where your data lives. Like I said before, there are 150 connectors within Power BI, and that is constantly growing. Each connector has different requirements, but most of them are an easy and seamless connection process. Connectors can be standard or custom. When I say standard, I mean out of the box. If it is custom, then you may have some additional work with the developer needed. All right, and the next thing we're going to talk about is storage modes. Storage modes are really important. In most cases, you'll be doing an import storage mode. An import storage mode is when Power BI caches the data into memory to deliver a fast performance. So with import data, Power BI is literally caching it into the desktop file. You can preview it, you can manipulate it, and then there's direct query. And direct query works by not caching the data. It doesn't import it to memory at all. And instead, Power BI kind of remembers the directions on where to go to get the data. So those are kind of the two differences between import and direct query. And just keep in mind that import is the primary way to access your data. However, there are some cases where direct query may be more beneficial, like if you were using a SQL connection. All right, and the next thing I'd like to talk about is visualizations. So there are a few different types of visualizations. So you'll see on a screenshot on the page, those are actually the visualizations that are available within Power BI out of the box. So there are currently 40. You can see there is quite the variety. Some variety includes bar charts, pie charts, line graphs, tables, etc. So whatever it is you are looking for, or if you're used to creating visuals in Excel, it is likely that has kind of spilled over into Power BI. You may also notice that there are two icons down in the last row in about the middle of that screenshot. These two icons are for Power Apps and Power Automate. So once you have built a effective, accessible, really nice looking Power BI report, you could possibly start to consider incorporating other parts of the Power Platform. That will be a discussion for another day, but just know it is possible to embed Power Apps into a Power BI report or a Power Automate flow into a Power BI report. Also, there is a store. So if you hit the three little dots that you see in that screenshot, you are able to access more visuals that are created by Microsoft and the community. They just are not present on the out-of-the-box selections. When you do add something from the store, it will show in that selection box. All right, and then the last thing I want to talk about with the anatomy of Power BI is views. So with views, you have three different views. There's the canvas view, the data view, and the relationship view. The canvas view is the primary place where you build reports. You can also create measures, utilize visuals, and add additional branding in this place. The data view is where you can inspect, explore, and understand your data. Here you can filter your data, create measures, and view the tabular backside that underlies your report. And then the last view is the relationship view, and that is where you will create the relationships to make your report dynamic. All right, and then now that we've kind of covered the anatomy of Power BI, I'd like to talk about data modeling and what kind of falls within that, including Power Query and M, which we've kind of talked about a bit, and then also stuff like schema types, so star and incremental refresh. So we've already talked about Power Query and M a little bit, but here's just another slide. I like to reiterate about Power Query because Power Query is going to be the primary place where you do your ETL transformations, and it is really critical in creating a clean backend for your report. To access the Power Query editor, you will use the Transform Data button. And if you'd like to alter the M code, you can do so by using the advanced editor. All right, and now I want to move on and talk a little bit about data model types. So the star schema is literally the gold star of report building in Power BI. This is important because it allows you to create more simplistic DAX, which DAX is the foundation of things like measures or calculated columns. If you're familiar with Excel functions, you can think of DAX and measures and calculated columns similar to that. Creating a star schema allows your data model to be more organized. It allows things to refresh faster, and it makes everything fairly consistent. However, with a star schema, you may struggle a bit at first. So you may need someone like myself to kind of create that or maintain it. And there's kind of the star shape. One way that I kind of like to think of a star schema actually is not a star. This is how I initially started thinking about a star schema. I thought of a waterfall. So I kind of reorganized the boxes that we just saw, and I imagine the top box as being the top of a waterfall, and the boxes below it kind of being the pond that all of the water flows into. So with the star schema, you always have a fact table and you have a dimension table. Fact tables are usually verbs and dimensions are usually nouns. So that is one way you can think about, when creating relationships, what is related to what. You can kind of break it out that way. In this example, the orders are the fact table, and customer, stores, products, and dates are dimensions, because that is everything that surrounds the order that can kind of live independently of the order. All right, and the last thing I want to cover with the data modeling is incremental refresh. Incremental refresh is an ability you have if you have a Power BI premium license. This is great if you have a lot of data and you only want to refresh the new data. So how Power BI works is typically if you hit refresh, it will refresh everything. If you have a lot of data, you may kind of imagine how taxing that might be on Power BI and cause a slower refresh. So if you would like to have a more proficient, efficient refresh, then incremental refresh might be something that would interest you, because it only refreshes the data that is new within your data set. All right, the next thing to talk about is data visualization. In the next few slides, I want to cover how audience and usage can influence you as you build out reports, and also understanding how to consider the user's experience and how you might visualize your data for the best user experience. All right, so when creating a report, you should consider the audience and the report type. This visual is a really great representation of the kinds of questions that pop into my head when I first begin talking to a client about Power BI. You might first go over pain points. What is currently a pain within their business life that is causing them to seek other opportunity? And then with that, what are the circumstances that are surrounding that? What are they hearing? How do they feel about it? Why? What is currently happening? And based off these types of questions, you will then start to narrow down your audience. Who will be viewing the report? Is it going to be a C-suite? Is it going to be management? Is it going to be salespeople? Those are all things that might influence the build of your report. You then also might want to consider what type of report you want to build. Do you want to build more of an analytical report? Do you want to build an educational one? Or perhaps you just want to build a dashboard. So with Power BI, you can create a report or a dashboard. Dashboards are great because it compiles visuals from many reports into one place. So you can see what is most important to you as a viewer. This is great for C-suite or management if they're only looking for certain things. When considering the UX and UI requirements, the biggest keyword to consider here is define. So this is kind of where you will take everything you have learned from the previous step where you empathize with the customer, and you will then put it to use and you will define a plan. You will define what type of device will this report be viewed on. Typically, it's going to be a computer, but perhaps they want a mobile view, which also means a mobile layout must be created. Do they want any style or theme branding? And are there any accessibility considerations to make when creating this report, maybe with color or font? Those are all things to consider. Other things you might consider with the user experience requirements are how will this report be interacted with? Will there be any alerts or scheduling or subscribing with this? Or does this report need to link out to other places? All right, and the next thing to consider is report structure. So Power BI is laid out fairly similar to Excel in a way. So you have your report pages. That's kind of like worksheets in Excel. So you have all of your tabs at the bottom of the page in Excel. It's the same way with BI. And then within the report pages, you have report objects. You have two different types. You have your visuals, which visualize your data. It is the direct connection to your data set. And then you have elements that are not data driven, including text boxes, buttons, shapes, images. Those are all things to, kind of plan out with your report structure. You don't want to overload a page with too many visuals or too many elements because it can hinder performance and cause refresh to become slower. So here are just some examples of reports and things that could have gone better. So in this report, you have a lot of tabular data, you aren't really utilizing color well, and there's no real structure to how your report is laid out. You have slicers in the middle of the page. And then also you have things like the red circles that just popped up. So on this visual, you have to slide both ways to view all of the data. This isn't really the best user experience because there's a chance the user may miss it. There's a chance that, the important stuff isn't actually being shown. Some questions that may come from this are, what is the best way to visualize this, and what's most important to the client when they view the report? Perhaps all these columns don't need to be on this table, and if they do, maybe make it its own page. Here's an example of a lot better, clean looking report. It clearly showcases data. It shows what's most important, and it does it in a unique and interesting way. This report utilizes color well. It's not overwhelming. The layout makes sense, and overall, this is just a very clean design where things have less of a chance to get lost. Now that we've talked a little bit about the anatomy of Power BI, we've talked about data modeling, visualization, I'd like to talk a little bit about connecting to sources. So starting off, we're going to talk about connecting Power BI to Excel. This is a very straightforward connection process and a really great way to practice learning Power BI. So when connecting Power BI to Excel, you are going to hit your Get Data button or select the Excel Workbook button, which I will show here soon. And then you will select the tabs you would like to import from your workbook, and then you can either choose to load or transform your data. Typically, I am one to hit transform and do all of my ETL transformations, and then close and apply those to have a fresh, clean data set to work with. And then once everything is loaded, you will then build your relationships. All right. Connecting Power BI to Business Central SaaS is another fairly straightforward connection process. You will start by hitting the Get Data button, and you will search for the connector called Dynamics 365 Business Central. You will then sign in with your Business Central credentials, and then you will select the pages you would like to manipulate within Power BI. Like I said, within Power BI, you are not writing data or modifying data in Business Central, you are strictly reading it. Like the Excel or any connector, you will then choose to transform or load your data. And if you don't see a page that you would like to manipulate or read or bring into Power BI, you can expose more of them via web services in Business Central or APIs. One note to make is that anyone can connect data to Power BI through Business Central or Excel. Power BI Desktop is actually a free application to use and build your report upon. The only time where you become hit with more of a paywall or licensing need is when you want to share those reports within your organization and you want to utilize Power BI service. Connecting Power BI to Nav and Business Central on-prem is a little bit more of a complex procedure. So you will still start with the Get Data button. You will choose the Dynamics Nav or Business Central on-prem connector. You will log in with credentials. It will say Windows, Basic, Anonymous. Those are the different types of credential types. With an on-premise instance, whether it's Business Central or Nav, you will always choose Basic. And that is because Power BI does not support Windows authentication with an on-premise situation. So in order to get your basic credentials, typically you will need a Nav BC on-prem instance that uses web service access keys. And then your login credentials will be then your username with domain. So you can find that on the user card, and your password would be the associated web service access key. So once you have that, you will then be able to select the pages you want to manipulate, and then you can do your ETL transformations. And like Business Central SaaS, additional pages can be exposed via web services. It's just getting that initial connection established can be a little bit cumbersome. All right, and the last thing to cover is Power BI service. So what is Power BI service? Power BI service is the online cloud-based portal that allows you to share your Power BI reports within your organization. Within Power BI service, you have the following features. You have workspaces. So workspaces are kind of like departments. That's the way that I like to consider them. So you might have a C-suite workspace, you might have a management workspace, you might have a sales workspace, a delivery workspace, whatever it may be. You can have a workspace and you can restrict access to that workspace via email. So, you provide others access to workspaces. Maybe you don't want Jim from sales being able to see all the C-suite reports, and that's okay. You just would not include him on the list for that workspace, and it would be confined to only those that have access. The primary feature with Power BI service is definitely sharing. So it allows you to easily share reports within your organization and allows for scheduled automatic refreshes. This is really important because it becomes a completely hands-off process. And it kind of leads into the next thing, which are Power BI service licenses. So with Power BI service, there are a few different licensing types depending on your business, but the two that are the most common are Power BI Pro and Power BI Premium. So Power BI Pro is included in Office 365 E5 licenses. And with that, you get service. You also get paginated reports, which kind of allow you to create invoice SSRS style reports within Power BI. You also get 8 automatic refreshes a day in Power BI service. With Power BI Premium, you get everything included in Pro. You also get a few other features such as deployment pipelines and data marts. And then the big thing is you get 48 refreshes a day versus the 8 that you get with Pro. So, if you have a need to refresh your data more frequently, Premium kind of opens the door for you to do that. The last thing with Power BI service is the ability to create and have shared data sets. So perhaps someone in your organization is very passionate about, learning Power BI. You could have someone kind of come in under the role of a data modeler. This person would create the data model, they would create the structure on the back end if they are more technical, and then they would publish that data model to Power BI service. And then, other users could come in as content creators and use that data model to create reports. This is a really great thing because you don't want anyone to just be able to modify a data model because if they do something incorrectly, it could ruin the integrity of the data model and all of the hard work that was put into it. So that being said, I would like to just quickly jump in, and I'm going to move Power BI desktop over. All right, I'm going to ask Angie, do you see Power BI desktop on the screen?
Yep, all good.
Okay, awesome. So this is Power BI desktop. You can download Power BI desktop from the Microsoft Store, also at powerbi.com. Like I said, this is a free application to use. It is free to build reports and to connect to your data. It's just once you publish, that's when you need a license. So that being said, I'm just going to quickly run through everything we've talked about today as far as, the anatomy of Power BI and how you might use it. So starting off, this whole view that we're seeing is the canvas view. This is, the primary place where you build reports. Over here, we have our 3 different views. You can tell what view you're on because there's a little sidebar selection indicator on the side. If you go down, you'll see our data view. Right now, I don't have anything in this report, so there is no data. But if I did have things, data would be populated here in rows and columns, much like Excel. And the relationship view is where you will create relationships between your tables using a key. So you can't just create relationships willy-nilly. It has to be like an example would be on a sales order. You have a salesperson. You would then connect the salesperson from the sales order to the salesperson card. And those relationships look just as they do in this little icon. When it comes to extracting your data, you will have to select this Get Data button right up here. And once I click on that, let it load. There we go. So these are all the connectors that are available out of the box with Power BI. Like here's Business Central, here's Business Central on-premise, Nav, SharePoint, Excel is also in here. Pretty much any Microsoft ecosystem software will be able to be connected to. There's also an Excel workbook button right up here. And if you click that, you will be able to open all of your files on the fly and extract data. So that is it for a little demo on Power BI. If you would like, I would love to connect with each of you on LinkedIn. Here's a QR code if you would like to connect with me, and we can continue the conversation on Power BI. Also, there are, I am always open to, questions. My contact information was in the beginning of this presentation, if you would like to reach out that way. Also, support@innovia.com is another way to connect with me. That being said, I don't see any questions in the question box, but if you have any questions, please type them in now. If you have any questions later on, feel free to ask them via any channel, really, LinkedIn or support. Those are welcome.
Thank you, Savannah. We'll give it a few more moments for anyone to get any questions in that they would like to have addressed. While we wait, Savannah, do you have any last-minute tips for anyone?
Yeah, so one thing, if you're interested in Power BI, I'd really urge you to get involved with the community. The community surrounding the Power Platform is so passionate. They love educating on the platform, and there are tons of resources out there for you to get involved and help you along with your journey.
All right, thank you. I still don't see any questions, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Like Savannah mentioned, if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to her or reach out to your customer engagement specialist here at Innovia Consulting, and we would be more than happy to get your concerns answered. Thank you, Savannah, for presenting. And for everyone on our webinar today, or if you are watching on demand, we thank you for taking the time out to join us. And you can check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that's anovia.com/events. We also have our training workshop page up at anovia.com/workshops. We have a variety of workshops to fit your role, so check out the ones that are right for you and your team. I believe Savannah does have a couple of future workshops coming up, so make sure you read about those and get registered for them. And if you haven't heard the latest Anovia Conversation podcast, we do encourage you to check out our podcast page at anovia.com/podcast. Browse through our selection and subscribe so you'll get notified when those new episodes air. And we do have our customer conference information up on our website at anovia.com/conferences. Our Anovia Customer Conference is a free event for you to attend. This year we will be in Scottsdale, Arizona, back to back with DynamicsCon Live. So make sure you check out our conference page and register so you don't miss out on those two events. All right, well, thank you everyone again for attending, and we look forward to seeing you soon at another Anovia webinar. Take care, everyone. Thank you, Savannah.
Thank you.